This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio. We are brought to you by championnews.net, your choice for the conservative voice. This is Carol Parisi. Today our founder, Jack Roeser, and myself have a very special guest with us, Mr. Tom Roeser. Welcome, Tom. And Jack, I do believe you know Tom.
I know him quite well.
I knew him, Horatio. Alas, poor York.
Well, I'll just set the stage very quickly. Some little over 50 years ago, I started OTTO Engineering, which is still a family company and really stands tall as the American dream. While I was doing the early years of building that company, my son Tom here graduated from Purdue. Actually, you had a master's and you taught down there for a while. You worked for some really big companies. You worked on the atomic energy plant which one was that?
Byron and Braidwood.
Yeah, in Braidwood. So he worked at an engineering firm up there. At the time, then you had, how many years did you work with Baxter Labs?
And I worked there for a dozen years. Terrific place to work.
Yeah. Tom was a director. He went around the world setting up plants for Baxter, I think Norway and Ireland, and down in the Caribbean, and other strange places like New Orleans.
Baxter put plants in the United States wherever the lowest per capita income was to raise the tide.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
That along the way, Baxter bought American Hospital Supply, which was a duplicate of the big division that Tom was in, and they canceled out their own. They let 5,000 people go at once, and I got a chance to have my son take a chance on working for his dad. Well, he worked for his dad for a little while, and it wasn't. So we've got an open door policy at the company, and while Tom was the operating manager and I was still the president, I realized that. He was the guy that was operating it. When somebody came in through our open door, their eyes should go to him, not to me. So a lot of people wondered how we got along, father and son, in our big company, which is now over 500 people, and a very successful manufacturing company. And but I decided that the eyes of the person that came in the door with a problem should go to him. He's the operating manager, should not go to me. So I made sure that that happened, and I was never sorry that Tom has been in full charge of OTTO Engineering and has caused a tremendous growth of the corporation. We're a corporation that in Illinois and the United States, where it had been fashionable to go to China or to just go bust, which is what has happened to most of this. OTTO Engineering is here in this most beautiful place on the Fox River with a beautiful dam built topped out in 1870. We've got islands and this beautiful river cliffs. It's one of the most beautiful locations in the state of Illinois. And
but it used to be a slum.
It used to be a slum. When I moved out here, and had, I was in business for about 20 years, I think.
Oh, no. You know, OTTO started in our family basement. And when you think about America, quit your job and go down into the basement and start a job, you've got to have enough confidence that you can do that. But you also got to have enough confidence in the economy that if you fail, you can go get your job back or a different job. And that's one of the issues that I might just make a comment about in today's economic environment. Entrepreneurs who have all kind of confidence and optimism in their own skills, they go start a company. Well, is that desire to go start that company hampered by the fact that if they fail, they may not get a job?
Right, because you're out of the job market.
Because the economy is so poor, it's not creating jobs for people. So the door closes behind them in a different way than it did back in the 60s when Jack started this. But Jack has often said to me things like, well, you're a better manager, or you could have started this. And I say, no, I could not. Because to start a company, you need either a lot of money or a very broad set of skills. And Jack has skills as an engineer, as a tool maker. He could make his own molds and not pay somebody for that. But the environment, he didn't pay much rent either. And the environment went
And I washed the toilet in the early days.
The environment went from the basement to a slum in Morton Grove. And when I say slum, every time it rained, the place flooded. And in 1968, so you'd only been in business about 7 years, one of our suppliers lived in Carpentersville and said, you know, it doesn't have Cook County taxes, it doesn't have Cook County regulations, it's got a lot of good people, why don't you check out Carpentersville? So we came out to Carpentersville and we purchased on the Fox River a 3,000 square foot frame building that was a liquor store that had gone belly up on a very busy street, Main Street in Carpentersville, one of the few bridges across the Fox River in this area, had gone belly up because the area was so blighted. Even the drunks didn't want to stop. This building had all of the liquor in it. The Tombstone pizzas were rotten because the freezer had gone warm because the electricity was off. But so that was Jack's first building that he owned.
Now, is that the one that he's in right now?
I bought this thing from a guy that owned it that was a con man. There had been a transfer, and he really was. And in fact, right after I bought the building from him, he went to the Caribbean. He got out of here because he pulled a few last scams, but the real estate guy preserved me from having to deal directly with this guy. As a result, I didn't get scammed, and I bought a building at a decent price, but it was firmly in my mind that I was very likely moving into tomorrow's ghetto. I did a survey to see if there was a lot of labor here to work in a manufacturing company, and so I stopped the taxi driver when he went by, and I asked him, you know, are there a lot of working people here, or that would like a job? And he says, this is a community of homes, not of businesses. So that was a good thing for Carpentersville and me. But it turned out this thing kept turning into a ghetto, and it got pretty bad.
Immediately to the west of OTTO was a series of brick buildings built between 1870 and 1920 that housed the Illinois Iron and Bolt Corporation.
Okay.
And it had gone into complete dilapidation. It was owned by a slum landlord. If you didn't care if it leaked, you could rent there. You could rent 100 square feet or 50,000 square feet. And that is what I think people had the image of what Carpentersville was. And it is why this area that Jack moved in was so blighted, is that there was absentee management with no equity stake by the occupants.
I got to throw my oar in the water because I grew up here. I grew up in Carpentersville, went to Dundee Middle, went to trumpet lessons in Dundee, lived in Carpentersville, so we were always going by here. And I'm telling you, you know, Iron and Bolt and
Illinois Iron and Bolt.
Illinois
Employed 2,000 people here in the previous century, and they made farm plows here for a long time. But they deteriorated by the time I bought the Eastern Bank. The buildings were terrible. They had holes in them like they'd taken a broadside of cannonballs.
Windows broken. I mean, we all believed at some point that these buildings were just going to slowly fall into the Fox River. Oh, yeah.
I have a question now. The original building that you bought, Jack, is that west of the river?
East. East side of the river.
East.
It's east of the current OTTO factory.
East of the river.
It is east.
But I tore it down. It's gone.
So that's where like the grass is?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, to put it in, so Jack...
That's not the Iron and Bolt company that we rehabbed, but the one that later got torn down. In fact, there were two old buildings right on the town square here that Tom leveled in order to improve the appearance of the area.
Right.
One of which was the liquor store that I had bought.
So Jack had this frame building that he started to flourish his business in. He put an addition on it in 1974, and he started to outgrow that. So in 1979, he looked out his window and saw that the buildings on the east side of the river that were part of the Illinois Iron and Blow Company were for sale.
Okay.
He paid $1 per square foot for the buildings.
Wow.
That's how bad the condition of the building was. His lawyer wrote him a 12-page letter about, you ought to have your head examined.
Wow. We are going to hear more about buying real estate and creating entrepreneur ideas, and we'll be back after the break. Stay with us.